South Central Los Angeles, home to the most notorious street gangs in America, the Bloods and the Crips. Starting out as schoolyard bullies, the two gangs spread like a virus. Hollywood, March 21st, 1972. After a concert at the Palladium, a crowd spills onto the street. Among them, teenage gang members. Although not at the Palladium that night, Angelo White knows them well.
On the weekends, we would pick the events that we would go to all over the city, where we would have fight rival gangs.
In the crowd is Robert Ballou Jr., son of a prominent attorney and a football player at Los Angeles High. Ballou is suddenly surrounded by a group of teens who demand his leather jacket and wallet.
That was our thing back then, you know, taking leather coat.
When he refuses, the gang jumps him. Unable to defend himself, the 16-year-old is kicked, punched, and beaten by the group. After stealing his coat, the attackers flee the scene.
We were young, you know, it was all about having, you know, taking and robbing and fighting.
Robert Ballou Jr. dies from his injuries. The Crips originate in South Central, an area split by the Harbor Freeway, into the east and west side. A world away from affluent Beverly Hills, the African-American community suffers from poor schools, housing, and unemployment nearly 3 times the national average. 15-year-old Raymond Lee Washington starts a gang with 10 of his friends. Because of their young age, they call themselves the Cribs.
His name was Washington, and he was a general.
It was like an Al Capone, you know. He had a scar, it's like Al Capone.
For Washington's young Cribs, the 1965 Watts riots are recent history. Frustration over poor social conditions and police brutality led the black community into the streets. The 6-day riot leaves 34 dead and more than 1,000 people injured.
Rioting in the Negro section of Los Angeles left behind scenes reminiscent of war-torn cities. It took the appearance of 14,000 troops to bring an end to what both Negro and white leaders called insurrection by hoodlums.
In the post-riot 60s, African Americans embraced the Black Power movement. The Black Panther Party preaches revolution and armed resistance against the pigs, slang for cops. Their message appeals to the young Cribs.
At 13 and 14 years old, we really didn't know what the hell they were saying. Only thing we really understood was the pigs.
Washington and his friends set out to create their own organization, even imitating the Panthers' leather jacket attire. The Cribs are just one of the many small street gangs on the less affluent East Side.
Gangs on the East Side was normal. Every street was a gang.
For youth like Raymond Danafu Cook, crossing into a different neighborhood means trouble.
People that would rob you if you crossed a certain barrier, like if you came across Compton Boulevard and you were walking, you should expect somebody to check you. Where you from?
In feudal South Central, teenage gang members prove themselves with their fists. And in battle, Raymond Washington is king.
He could challenge anybody, anywhere, anytime, all the time. He could knock Tyson out any day of the week.
His tough reputation earns him respect, attracting members into his gang.
If you were with Raymond, you were with the one who was capable of protecting everybody. He looked out for people. He had what we call now morals, but we didn't know what morals were then. But he had that.
Despite his youth, Washington is a born leader. He dreams of creating the most powerful gang in the city.
It really didn't matter what gang you were from. If you was with Raymond at that time when he was 17, 16, you were with the president. You were with it. You were in. That was the scent. That was the power. That was the energy. He had that.
In the spring of 1971, Washington moves a step closer to his dream. He persuades rival gangs from the West Side to form an alliance with the Crips.
People coming from everywhere trying to get in, be initiated.
Through violence and street robbery, Washington sets himself up as a modern-day Robin Hood.
Like bandits coming from the poor sections to the more affluent sections to requisition their material to bring it back to the neighborhood. That's how Raymond operated when I knew him.
The Cribs carry canes, emulating their pimp heroes of the early 70s black exploitation films. Victims describe their attackers as looking like cripples or Crips. The name Cribs becomes Crips. Gang members adopt a lifestyle they call Crippin'.
Crippin' meant, are you ready to rob? You know, plunder and pillage.
Patrolling South Central, Sheriff Ken Bell witnesses the rise of the Crips.
It just started growing street by street, neighborhood by neighborhood. And what do we do in the school districts? We start suspending kids and expelling them and moving to different schools.
Washington himself is expelled from several schools for fighting. But by trying to stamp out the violence, school authorities only make matters worse.
So now you got different segments all over the city of Los Angeles being moved around because of the violence. They created another school, but they would go to a new school and they would get more buddies and then they would grow. That's how the Crips got so big.
From Stockard to Fisher, from Fairfax to Figueroa, was all Blackstone at one time.
T. Rogers is founder of a West Side gang called the Black P. Stones. He is angered by the Crips coming onto his turf.
The guys from the other side of the double yellow line would come over into our neighborhood, rape, rob, and burglarize certain houses. So we told them dudes, you know, if y'all got that type of shenanigans going on, y'all stay over there and y'all do it in y'all's neighborhood. And that was really the start of the bickering, the fighting.
To combat Crip expansion, the Black P. Stones approach other gangs.
We called a meeting up at Manual Arts High School, and there were 4 groups. And we all agreed that we would come together, and if any of us had problems or needed help, that the others would be there to support them in their endeavors. There's safety in numbers.
To distinguish themselves in battle, the two sides wear colors. The Crips wear blue, and the anti-Crip alliance choose red, calling themselves the Bloods. From small bands of teenage thugs, the rival gangs have grown into citywide armies. The Bloods and the Crips are about to go to war. Now, both Bloods and Crips routinely carry firearms. Crip founder Raymond Lee Washington disapproves of the use of guns. He believes that real men prove themselves with their fists. But in 1974, Washington is jailed for second-degree robbery. Behind bars, the old-school street fighter becomes disillusioned with the gang he founded. Back on the street, the war between the Crips and Bloods enters a new phase as gunplay goes mobile. 1974, Baldwin Village. 16-year-old T. Rogers and his Black Pea Stone Bloods get together at his mother's house.
Everybody would come to my mom's house. My mom's house was the Kool-Aid house. And everybody would come over there and do their homework and dance, and the girls would tell their problems to my mother, and the boys would hang out, and we'd lift weights and box and throw the football around, you know, all the things that kids do.
Suddenly, a slow-moving car approaches the house. The drive-by is born.
After the drive-by, we had roll call, and everybody called out their name. One name didn't get called out. There was a murmur.
A 14-year-old Black Pea Stone has been hit in the head.
He's laying in between the car and the gutter, in between the car and the curb. And I bent down and I rested his head on my lap. The brain matter fell between my fingers. And I had to go to his sister and his little brother and his mother. And I got to go back and say, he got killed hanging out with me. Who the f am I?